Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Runners Roundtable, where in season 6, I am talking to female runners, run coaches, business. I feel like all run coaches are small businesses, but I am talking to some pretty incredible females about their favorite running memories. And in this episode, I am joined by Coach Becky Croft. And I feel like Coach should be a part of your name because thinking of you as Becky Croft feels weird. And I'm always like, no, that's Coach Becky Croft. So, Coach Becky has been on the podcast a few times before. So, if you hear her voice and it sounds familiar, it's because you've heard it before. And I just want to first off just thank you for being here with me today. And also now pass it on to you to remind us of your running story and how you got into running and where you're at with running right now.
Well, thank you for having me on again. It's always such a fun experience chatting with you. I feel like we hit it off immediately, and I just really enjoy how we connect. So I was really excited to be able to come on and chat again. But my name is Becky Croft. I am a running and strength coach in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And my running story is long and has fully evolved into like something totally different than what it began as. Initially, I started running as a form of weight loss, and looking back, like it was obviously entered in a time that I really needed it and for more than weight loss. But I survived over 6 years of endometriosis, several surgeries, and eventually a hysterectomy that showed me how much was lacking in the running industry as far as running resources for women like me. So that's what eventually pushed me out of my comfort zone and helped running become something that I could share with women going through hard things.
Yeah, I mean, you have been so I've told you this before and I'll just say it again, right? Where like you have been such a pivotal person for me in terms of expanding my awareness of who is in the running space. And by who, that we start to ask who is not in the running space and who is not reflected in the running space. So you've been real pivotal, Jesus, for me in terms of opening my eyes to how wonderful the running community is, but then also where are there gaps for different kinds of people, and then also for women at different stages of life as well. And we've talked about before, there's menopause, but then there's surgical menopause. And then there's in general just, not a ton of research done on women during this phase of life. And even the people who are doing the research, it gets really confusing because you'll have one person say one thing and then another person say something else. And it's like, great. So it's already confusing enough to be in a body that is changing. And even the experts can't agree on what those changes mean. So for me, you've always been someone that has prodded it by asking, like, well, then why don't we know? Or what else is there to know? So I want to just, shout you out there as being someone who's been very important to me in understanding the running space and even just understanding how my relationship with running is changing and it's going to continue to change as I age. So the theme of this season and the question for you, it's going to be about your favorite running memory. And now looking back at your story, is there one, like, can you think of one memory that when you look back on it, you're like, that's the one. Like, that's the one that I like to retell, or that's the one that I come back to often whenever I'm feeling a certain way. Do you have that memory?
That is such a hard question, honestly, because in a couple decades of running, obviously I've so many different experiences. Some of them have been so fun, some have been really challenging. But I think the one that I come back to most often is where I finally had a big breakthrough in the marathon. And for me, that was my sixth marathon in Wilmington. That was a couple years ago, and everything finally came together. And in that cycle, like I had built it differently. I had come out of a season of burnout, and I was experimenting and getting really curious with like things that I could change and how I can take all of the things that I've learned for menopausal running and apply them to myself. I do this for my athletes. I ask questions like, what can we tweak? What are you doing? What are you not doing? What's working and not? But for me, I started taking that lens and turning it in on myself and saying, okay, where can I let go? Where am I holding too much pressure?
Mm,
How can I make running fun again? So I changed up my approach to training. I broke my cycle down differently, and I went into Wilmington just feeling like excited and less pressure than normal. Like the nerves weren't there. I lined up and I was like, okay, I'm ready to do this. I know what to do. And let's just see what can happen. By the time that I got to probably mile, I don't know, 22, I had a revelation. I normally settle in between like pockets of groups that are on the course, and like I have my own little bubble. I can always see who's in front of me. I can hear people behind me. I know I'm on course,
hmm.
but I kind of settle into this little area by myself. And I never got there. I was like, why are there so many people around me? Like, when is this going to thin out? Like, 22 miles in, where that normally happens within the first, 5 or 6, 8 miles.
Yeah.
And it dawned on me like I was performing at a new level, and this is what it looks like to be at that level. This is what everybody else taps into very naturally and easily. And for me, it had taken years to put together the perfect cycle for it to come together. And now I can't find a pocket because I'm running with a pack.
Yeah. I love that so much because you said it was your sixth marathon, right? So it's not like it was your very first marathon or it wasn't. And for some people, that is them, right? Like that is their moment. I feel like my best marathon feeling wise was probably my first marathon because it was all so new and I had no clue what I was doing. And it's been after 2016, kind of those subsequent marathons have been a little bit more challenging because I do get in my head more about them, even when I tell myself, like, we're not doing this for time, we're doing it to see what we can do, very much so of like what you said of let's see what can happen. And yet the pressure still feels there. So I find it so fascinating that it's marathon number six for you because not everyone gets to marathon number six, right? So how
Exactly. They get frustrated very quickly. They give up before they get to that breakthrough. And it may be just under the surface, but they have not continued to experiment or tweak enough or be consistent enough to get there.
the tweaking part is really hard, especially when you are on social media or you're surrounded by other runners and you see what other people are doing in their training and you think that's what you should be doing. Now, I know that you are, I feel like by default, a very independent, sassy person, but how
Yes.
did you embrace that, right? Like, how did you, thinking of this training cycle for this particular race, how did you, I think, allow yourself to be curious?
I think it was because of the burnout. Like I
Mm.
went into marathon training in 2019, and I ran Eugene in the spring and I ran Berlin in the fall right before the entire world shut down. And I really sat in the airport and text my coach, and I was like, okay, I've decided what's next. And she was like, oh, okay, what is it? Like really excited to hear what my big goal race was going to be. And I sent her a message and said, "Have you ever heard of the 5K?" And she laughed at me because I was trying to get faster and stronger and Boston qualify. And all of a sudden, I'm like, just kidding. Have you heard of the 5K? But I just was so over it at that point. It was a heavy year for me, rebuilding my home after a fire, moving back in, and surviving summer running and on. And then, like in Berlin, it was cold and it poured on me on and off for 5 hours. And I was over it. So I went through a little more training with her, but then I stopped coaching and I got to this point where I was like, well, I played with strength training, but what would happen if I just chose a plan, stopped this like decision fatigue and analysis paralysis? What if I just chose one plan and saw it through? That means like slowing down and actually making sure that I've got quality in my form and that I'm doing the best that I can to follow this one plan. And that's really what it took for strength training to stay with me in, a month or a cycle and then let it go because I just wanted to run. Running is my one true love. But I found a new love in strength training, which I enjoyed well enough. But that was kind of got me going down this path of, okay, well, what would happen if I just forced myself to run for like 30 minutes 3 times a week and not care about pace, not care about distance, not care about any other metric, but like just bare ass minimum. And then I can do more strength training. I can sleep in, I can enjoy life, I can have my friends and not worry about it. And it was really uncomfortable initially, honestly, because I thrive in this structure and like
Yeah.
chasing goals. But it was in those short, easy runs a few times a week, pulling back that I was listening to podcasts and audiobooks about like self-development that were always like tied to running. But eventually I got to the point where I was like, why am I chasing somebody else's arbitrary goal? I mean, Boston is an arbitrary goal. Somebody else said that is the pinnacle, and I accepted it and I chased it. And then I was like, but that doesn't define who I am as a runner. That doesn't define who I am as a human, as an athlete, as a coach. And it was through that thought process and shifting my mindset that I was able to let go and just like, okay, I can go run with my group. I can do what they're doing, lead them. I can help other people. I can take the focus off myself and just enjoy movement. And so I started playing with my training cycles differently. And I built up for a half with no goal race at the end of it. I was like, did you know that you could run a half marathon with no race at the end? Like no medal, like you just go run a half marathon. And then I took my deload and I started an actual marathon training cycle for a race. And I was like, let's just see what happens.
I think that is so beautiful because I know exactly what you're saying. And that was a big part of my running story is that I thought Boston was the goal. And coming up, I feel like when I came up as a runner, and I say, social media, I think it's wonderful, it's great, but it's also, it can be very problematic in terms of what it leading one to believe that their goals should be a certain thing. And that was really what was happening for me, where it's everyone around me and everyone that I followed was they were going for that Boston qualifying time. And there's nothing wrong with that. I want to be perfectly clear. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong if that is your goal. What I think is wrong is the idea of one size fits all for running and that is your pinnacle goal and that's exactly what happened to me where I had that thankfully, thanks to my own run coach, that aha moment of this isn't even something I want. it's what other people are doing. And because other people are doing, it's what I think I need to be doing. But needing to do and wanting to do are two very different things. And that was huge shift for me that allowed me to, and it sounds like it's the same for you, right? Where it allowed me to have fun with running again without thinking like I have to always be working on improving my time.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So,
At some point, you have to start improving your relationship with running overall. And even if you're going, people say all the time, go back to your why. Even if you're going back to your why, it may have evolved over time. And that's what it did for me. Like initially, like I said, it was for weight loss. I got to the point where that was no longer my why. My why were all of the reasons that it kept me going through my health journey, through like grieving the loss of possibility of being a mother, and what literally kept me going in life. So I have to come back to a new why.
mhm.
And for me, it's running is joyful. It's a moving meditation. It is my time. It is my time with community. There's so many different aspects of running that I love, but it's not always just to Boston qualify or to hit specific races, paces, distances. Sometimes it's just to get out and reconnect or disconnect.
Yeah, sorry. See, my puppy is he's cheering you on. Hold on.
That's okay. Mine like to do the same thing.
Oh my gosh. He's like, "Yes, Becky." Siggy's gonna he will be he's the coworker and he's I'm assuming just gonna show up often this season.
That's
So
fine.
um but yeah, I think there's I guess the question that I want to ask next is after this season in your life, right? You have this sixth marathon, you've embraced being curious and training differently. How would you say that particular season of life informed all the seasons that came after? And how has that shaped who you are as a runner today?
It's given me permission to kind of ebb and flow through my training goals and my goals more. Like I came out of that one obviously very hungry because I had a 25 and a half minute PR in that marathon, which most people cannot pull off that deep into their marathon journey. It truly one really good cycle where you put everything together to start seeing those type of improvements. And the law of diminishing returns tell us that the fitter that we get, it's harder to make those changes
Mm-hmm.
or see those results. So I came out of it very hungry, and I came out of it like within, I think, 7 minutes of a Boston qualifying time. So I was like, oh, like if I can take 25 minutes off of this one race, then I can take 7 minutes off of another one in the right circumstances. But then I came into a year where I had different opportunities, I had different weather, different life stress. And so I was able to reframe that next year as much more of experience goals. You know, my
Mm-hmm.
first race of the year was another goal race. So I was like, oh, I can choose the right location, the right weather, and the right course, and I can get that 7 minutes plus a buffer, you know. But that's not what the universe handed to me. So I came out
Yeah.
of that one disappointed and then looking back at it and saying, okay, the fitness was there. It was not, it was just not the day. And the marathon owes you nothing. So I was working on reframing my mindset, and that's where the Boston opportunity popped up out of the blue. And I was like, okay, universe, I see what had planned for me. I saw what was simmering in the background that I had not had on my radar. And I was able to chill out, get through 3 marathons in one year, which I normally do not advise for most people. But if you can approach them as experience goals rather than, oh, I'm gonna try to go PR every one of these, then you can get through them. I took 3 deloads. I went to Ventura, I went to Boston, and I went to Chicago. So 2 of those races in that year were majors that I only had Chicago on my radar because I got into the lottery.
Yeah.
But Boston popped up, and so it really reshaped my year. And I forced myself again to go back to what happens if I force some discipline, pull back, let go of some things for a little bit, and then I can start building volume. And then that kind of led me to a couple of my athletes handing me a bib for a half marathon. I was like, this fits well into the plan where I'm going with volume and help me get to the point where I could, run another marathon this year and hopefully have a good experience with it.
That's so important to, I think, everyone that's listening to this to remember that longevity in sport means that your goals are going to shift. So not every race is going to be a PR race. Not every race is going to be a time goal race. So I really love that you introduced this concept of the experience goal because sometimes that is what it is, right? It's not, and I always say that, it's you're going to have a time goal. Like I think a person should always have a time goal because you need to know how to fuel for the time that you're out there. Like that's it
Yes.
for me. It's like not a time goal because you plan on PRing. It's just how long are you going to be out there so that you can fuel properly for while you're out there, right? I don't want runners being like, I don't know how long I'm going to be out there, so like I'll take what I normally take, and it's like no, you need to plan that because the last thing I want is for you to be like, yeah, but I'm just having fun. So I'm not going to think about fueling. And then you end up having an awful time because you didn't fuel properly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I love this idea of experience goals because, again, if people are listening to this and they're looking to you or they're looking to me and they're like, wait, I want to be someone who's running for the next decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, then that's going to be part of it because, and I'm not saying this is where you're at, I'm not saying this is where I'm at, but there is going to be a point in time where you're going to peak at whatever your fastest is, and then it's
Hmm.
just you're no longer going to reach those times. So introducing those experience goals earlier in your running career, I feel like that's just something that adds a different dimension to running that makes running feel more sustainable.
Yes, absolutely. And that's always my goal for my athletes and for myself. All 10 of my marathons have been post-hysterectomy, and I don't know a lot of people who could dedicate the consistency that it takes to get through those without injury in the way that I have. But it's because I'm stubborn as hell
Mm.
and I am willing to do things differently than a lot of people are. And I mean, that doesn't mean that I'm exempt from the same thoughts and goals or mindsets that anybody else is. It just means that I'm willing to be uncomfortable in different ways than a lot of people are. And so I bring that into my coaching as well. When my athletes are really in that place where they're struggling and they're disappointed in their outcomes because life got in the way,
Mhm.
because perimenopause got in the way, I will ask them, can you just let go of this time goal for now? Not forever,
Mhm.
but can we loosen the reins on it just a little bit so that you can go enjoy this experience? And one of my athletes, I got her through 5 marathons and a relay race in one year. It was not obviously my goal to allow her to do all of those, but she is also very stubborn. And being able to ask her to do that, like let go of times you have already run, this race, this relay, you're running a business, you're a mom, you've got all the things, you're gonna have to let go somewhere. And this really needs to be it right now. You can go have that experience, but I want you to go into
Mm.
it strong enough to survive it and come out of it mostly intact.
Yeah, I think that's just such a healthy approach to have, because if you're always chasing time goals, if you're always chasing the same goal, eventually you're going to lose your awe. And I think you're going to lose some of the respect that you have for the sport and for the distance as well. Right. So it's all about, can we embrace, which is very much what I'm getting from you. It's, can we embrace engaging with running in a different way for the moment or for the season, right? Like, it's not, we're not saying that this has to be forever, but does it, which is my favorite question is always, does it make sense? Does this
Yeah.
make sense right now? Does this goal
Mhm.
make sense for the season of life? Is it really smart to go after a time goal when you're an accountant and you're entering your busiest season of the year? Probably not, right? Like, it's things like that where it's, does it make sense? And I feel like a lot of runners, and I can include myself in this, we get so, it's almost like fatalistic, the mentality of like, if it doesn't happen right now, it's never going to happen. And it's like, hey, remember these races happen all the time. Or
Yeah.
remember, if it's not this race this weekend, then I'm sure there's something next weekend that you can do. Obviously, the bigger the distance, the harder it is to pivot. But it's one of those things of, it doesn't have to be right now, and it can be later. And I think, again, going back to the memory that you shared, where had you not ever made it to that sixth marathon, you may not even be where you're at right now as a run coach, with the philosophies that you have, with the lessons that you impart on all of us, had that memory not been a part of your story.
Exactly. And that's the thing. Like that breakthrough came because I let go of everything. So even if you are struggling to let go of the time goals, distance goals, or these arbitrary timelines, that doesn't mean that it's not going to come. Maybe you just needed to let go enough to relax and to learn how to trust or enjoy the process, because those are different things in order to get to that goal. And it could pop up out of nowhere. You never know. If you will just have enough curiosity and help train your subconscious to let go of all of the and all of the what if this doesn't happen? My shift was, what if this does happen?
Mm-hmm.
What if letting go of this actually allows me to get to that goal with less friction?
Yeah. I mean, those are all the things that we have to open ourselves to. Okay. I've got a few more questions for you. So this one is, if you could go back in time, what would you say to your younger runner self?
Oh, it's funny because I think that if we look back, hindsight's 2020, and a lot of people will be like, "Oh, I would change this. I would tell myself this." But I don't think that I would change anything or do anything differently because it did lead me to where I need to be. And I've learned so much throughout my decades of running that it came to me when it needed to. I mean, even if I did go tell younger me, like, it's gonna be fine. You're gonna come out on the other side of this. You're going to be stronger, faster. She wouldn't believe me because she wasn't at that level where I am now. Like, it would be such
Mm-hmm.
a mismatch in experience and intellect that maybe I wouldn't even have accepted it.
Yeah.
Like, I
I
do this with my athletes all the time. I'm like, I promise it's gonna be fine. And they're like, no, it's not. It's no, it's terrible. And I'm like, it's gonna be fine.
Yeah, I mean, experience is the greatest teacher, right? And having perspective is the biggest lesson that you can have, right? Your experience is going to show you that it's going to be fine, and your experience is also going to give you that perspective to see things through a greater lens versus, again, I think we can be so like negative and fatalistic and like, oh my God, if I miss this long run, my training cycle's done. And it's like, no, it's not. We just
No.
pivot. Or if I don't do the speed, I'm not going to do that. No, it's not. Like, it's going to be fine, because it's, the mental side of running is really, really big. And there's just there's so much more to running than the actual running. Okay. So, kind of flipping that question, what hopes do you have for your future runner self?
Um, there are a lot of hopes. And I think they still fall in line with a lot of time goals and distance goals and, untapping the limits of possibility because I feel like we are all unlimited and I'm still very curious about what's in there for myself or for my athletes. And sometimes it takes me experimenting with my own training to be able to apply to them or to look at their training and go, well, maybe what if I did that? Like I learned just as much from them as they learned from me. So
Hmm.
my hopes is that we just keep moving forward with curiosity and experimenting and having these like seasons of reinvention.
I love that. I love that. Okay. Next question is, how do you celebrate yourself as a runner?
Oh, I mean, aside from biweekly pedicures and like coffee treats after my run, I pour over my training logs. I look at all of the graphs and the data and I look and see how far I've come. And sometimes my husband helps me with that. He will be like, "Hey, remember when you couldn't run for 90 seconds straight on the Couch to 5K app? And now look at you, like you've completed yet another marathon. So yes, you can do this." But I think it takes like looking at all of these bits and pieces to put it together and remember how far we've truly come because we keep moving our own goalposts. And when we
Hmm.
do that, we forget that distance that we've covered.
Oh my gosh, we need to put that on a poster. Like that needs to go on a poster because that was so good and it's so true. And that's and again, it's that perspective, right? Like it's your experience and your perspective, but it that is an actual that is a very active thing that you're doing, right? That taking the time to pause, which again, us runners aren't necessarily known for taking the time to rest and pause and slow down, right? But taking that time to pause because yeah, when you think, oh, I couldn't run for 90 seconds and last year I ran 3 marathons, it's like, wait a minute, the Becky of
Yes.
90 seconds is not the same Becky of 3 marathons, right? Like you are not the same person. So
No.
that is everyone listening, that's your homework assignment is, just go back to like your very first run and even just think about who you were on that first run and reflect on who you are right now because I think again we could all, and I know for myself, could use that reminder of look at the journey because sometimes we're so focused on where we want to go that to your point we forget how far we've already come.
Yeah. Yeah, the biggest critics of ourselves. And so it's really easy to get wrapped up in all of these goals that we've created for ourselves and think that we're never going to hit them. But if you truly look back at bits and pieces, and this is where our finisher medals hanging on the wall or those race pictures that pop up in our memory that are really important for us to go back to because like you said, the runner that I was last year was not the runner I was even the year before. I mean, I came out of 2019 burned out after 2 marathons, but I came out of 3 marathons last year, raring to go and forcing myself to pull back so that I could have another goal cycle when I found the right race, the right time, the right season. And, I had that it was going to be this year at Indy, and it wasn't. But I still was so much stronger than I've ever been, even in a really hard season, a really tough year of just like death by a thousand cuts,
Mm-hmm.
that I was out of it and went, okay, yeah, I am stronger instead of feeling really defeated and frustrated.
Yeah. Okay, two questions left. One of them is if you can let us know where to find you and your website, Instagram, all that fun stuff.
So I am most active on Instagram. You will find a lot of spice there, some sass, some education, some chaos. I've been in my unhinged era, but that's at coach.croft. It leads you to my website and ways to connect with me.
I'm here for the unhinged. I truly am here for it. And I appreciate your Instagram account so much because you don't shy from like people in your comment section or from people that are I mansplaining. I think that's probably the best way to put it. They come onto your page
Oh
to
yeah.
mansplain and you're like, no. So so y'all follow for it's the education, yes, but also just the engagement, I think is so fantastic. Okay, final question is what are your final words for us?
Um, I think it is to just see what happens if you let go of the negative what if and twist that into the positive opportunity. What if I change this? What happens if I try this for 4 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever it is? Um, I created a training plan out of my own breakthrough experiment, and I don't think a lot of people are really able to look at it and go, wow, 30 to 30 weeks is a long time to look at a training cycle. But
Mhm.
the way that it's designed is to help you get uncomfortable and be able to lean into that. What if I give this a try? What if this works out? We have
Yeah,
to flip that perspective a little bit.
absolutely. I mean, it's the reframe of what you shared so beautifully earlier instead of thinking like why, just being like why not, right? So Becky, thank you so much for joining me once again on the podcast. Everyone, thank you for listening. And again, big encouragement to go follow Becky for all your education and sassy needs. And yeah, thank you so much, Becky.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Bye, everybody. Until the next one.